Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer 3024-6-600. This is their 6-inch double-acting spring hinge that features a box clamp for the door flange, door portion of this. And it is in a prime coat finish. This is a somewhat unusual hinge, meaning you just don't see them all the time, but you certainly do see them. This is a double-acting spring hinge, and the only thing that sets it apart from the most common 3029 spring hinge is this box clamp feature. The door thickness must be selected at the time of order, and you can see why, because that clamp is made specifically for the door thickness. The model that I'm showing you here has been made for 1.25 inch door thickness. Okay, and again, it must be selected at the time of order. Box clamp flange type, they call this. Non-template for those screw holes. Made of steel, shown in the 600 prime coat finish. Steel. Available in several different architectural finishes. Okay, now. How many of these do you need? Dorman doesn't make hinges. Bommer says if you've got a 75-pound door, go with 2 of them. And they're really looking for doors, 2'8" or 3 foot and 7 foot in height. 75-pound door, go with 2. If you're over 100 pounds, 107, they say, go with 3. Maximum door width for 2 hinges is a 2'8". If you got a 3 foot door, go with 3 spring hinges. I'm a fan of more spring hinges than less. The reasoning is because as the door goes through its opening and closing cycle, what's really keeping the door vertical is the tension that's been set on these springs. You'll have an opportunity for the door to not operate correctly if you're underpowered in the spring department, because keep in mind that as this door swings in and out, there will be an ever so slight amount of tug on that rear spring or the frame portion of that. So that's why it's a good idea to have ample spring power on reserve is the bottom line. Only for light duty or low usage doors would I consider 2 spring hinges really, because most likely you're hanging a solid cord. Okay, so 1.25 inch, 1 3/8 inch, 1.5. They will set the box clamp to be appropriate for that size, and you'll be in real good shape. Now, there is a link below this video to the template and the installation instructions, and they will be included as well with your installation. At this point, I will only say follow the guidelines in terms of the quantity of spring hinges needed, and it would be better to follow those guidelines rather than be safe than sorry is the bottom line. So now like I said earlier, there are 2 links to the installation instructions and then also to the template. Both the documents are important. However, they're different. You've got different information on each unit. So looking at, and from this part of the video forward, I'm going to be discussing just installation related questions. So we're going to review both of these documents step by step to go through and make sure that you are possessing all the knowledge that you need to install them and to, initially make sure that they're going to work for you. So let's start with the template. Yeah, template. First of all, in the upper left-hand corner, you have dimensional drawings of the hinge on the left-hand side. I'm not going to beleaguer those points here with a tape measure. They're all there. We know that those dimensions are accurate. The important part of the template is to determine size of the door or the frame. So if you really have to know, are you doing a single door or a double door? But after that, are you going to surface mount the door to the box clamp, or if you're going to mortise it? And then at that point, there's nothing else to know. So you'll start with something. you'll start with either the door size being fixed, or you'll start with the frame inside opening being fixed. You have to start with something. You might say, well, I haven't made any of it. I can make it anything I want. Well, start with something. Let's say, for instance, for this example, that you are going to do a 36-inch wide frame opening. Now, you could do that too. Let's say you've got a 36-inch door that you picked up in its full width. That'd be a better application. It's a little bit easier. If I was going to manufacture it, I'd probably oversize my frame a little bit and not have to worry about the door. But you got a 36-inch net size door. The door measures 36-inch wide. And we're going to not mortise this door flange. We're just going to take the door and butt it inside of here, and that'll be that. So you're looking at, in the table on the right side in the middle of the page, you've got actual door width plus the A dimension. When you're not mortising, that's 0.617, roughly 11/16, 5/8, closer to 5/8. 36-inch plus roughly 5/8, that is going to be your frame opening, so 36 and 5/8. Okay. If you're going to mortise the door so that it comes flush to the back side of the leaf back here, okay, you would change that dimension to 0.407 inch, roughly 7/16 of an inch. That is all based on you having square edge doors, and that will give you adequate clearance for the door to go in your cased opening without there being any sort of conflict between the outside corners of the door. You could certainly tighten that margin down 1/8 of an inch or so if you were to radius the door style, but obviously your hinge side has to be square edge. If you're doing a double door, it's the same sort of concept, except that you'll use the B dimension for either mortised or not mortised, and that's how you would go about doing it. The template gives you that important dimensional information, which the installation instructions do not. And quite frankly, all that you get is the installation instructions and not the template, which you need both documents. So we have both of them posted here. So completing the review of the template, we will say if you have any questions on sizing your doors or your frame, feel free to reach out to us. At this point, I'm going to move on to the installation instructions. So installation instructions, we're going to start in the upper right-hand corner. Remove the spring tension from each barrel by inserting the tension rod into the tension adjustment hole. Rotate in the direction of the arrow as shown in Figure 2 or Figure 3 and remove the tension pin. These hinges, when they arrived to me, had no tension on them whatsoever. If they were to arrive to you, there would be a tension pin. There's a lot of things in this bag. That's a tension pin. There'd be a tension pin stuck in one of these holes, and it'll be resting on the shoulder of the flange itself. You would insert the tension rod, which is the large black piece of steel, turn it in the direction of the arrow, which is clockwise, pull that pin out, and then you can carefully release all the tension. And do that on both sides. That's how you go about doing that. Now, step 2, locate the hinges as shown in Figure 1. Figure 1 is in the lower left-hand corner. You can see that what they're calling for is one hinge very close to the top, 3 inches. That's going to for sure be one of your hinges. You will for sure have a second hinge at the bottom, about 7 inches from the bottom. If you have a third hinge, install it as they've shown. You want 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom. Or your even number, well, I suppose odd as well, but you want your multiple hinges installed at the top. That is where all of the business end of hanging the door, holding the door, getting the door to close is done. So step 2, locate hinges as shown in Figure 1. 3024 box clamp may be mortised or surface applied to the door edge. We've already discussed that. Align the center line of the door with the center line of the frame and secure the frame leaf. So you're going to want to make sure that this hinge, the center line of this hinge, is the center line of the frame. as measured in terms of jam depth or depth. There's a note there in capital letters. For best alignment of double doors, mount the hinges, if you have a pair of doors, mount the hinges of one door with the tension collar pointed up. Then for your other door, mount them with the tension collar pointed down. Okay? As shown in figure 1. Shims may be necessary under the edges of the flanges for door alignment. You might have an ever so slight amount of toe in the bottom of the jambs. You might need to toe the hinge in or out, shim it in or out a little bit, etc. So because of the mechanics of how the spring work inside of there, Bommer has found that reversing or inverting one hinge is proper to get the doors to sit together in elevation, flush with each other. Looking at the upper left-hand corner of the installation instructions, you can see how they show the hinge attached to the jamb and the door attached to the box clamp. Tension holes on top, door rotating around jamb flange. Okay. The second diagram over to the right, same sort of situation, as do the rest of them. Really what they are showing here in those steps is the path that the hinge travels depending on how it's pushed. Okay. The two diagrams below that show how you're setting the tension on them. Both of the barrels have arrows stamped into them or embossed into them. Okay, and you're always going to set your tension in accordance with the direction of the arrow, regardless of how it's set. Just follow the arrow. If the tension collars are up, clockwise. If they're upside down, counterclockwise is how you'll go about doing that. Spring tensioning instructions. Do not exceed 5 holes of tension. So that means, okay, 5 holes of tension, and that's because you don't want to have an undue amount of tension set on the spring, because as the door opens, it increases the tension, and it could snap or damage the spring or kink it. I have seen these springs overcranked, and the entire thing begins to look like a genetic DNA sort of shape, contorted, and the spring is irreparable. And you'll do that all with your tension pins and the tension rod. Now, with the box clamp type, you're going to get through bolts. You're going to get, I'm sure those are quarter 20. Hex cap screws and machine bolts. You're going to get the 1224 flat undercut head machine screws for the frame clamp. It would be nice to have some wood screws provided. There are none in this package. You might have to come up with those. You'd want a number 10 or a number 12. I'm thinking that either will work, but that countersink looks a lot closer to a number 10. Okay. Reviewing the rest of the installation instructions, everything we talked about the tension collar up or down is called attention to in the elevation view of the installation instruction. Box clamp wraps around door and is secured using through bolts and nuts that are provided. And Bommer manufactures these in architectural finishes, not only prime coat, chromes, brasses, bronzes, but they're all made of steel. The name Bommer is synonymous with double-acting spring hinges, is the bottom line, and their product offering is comprehensive in that area. The last thing I'd like to point out to you, if you can see it, maybe not, the Bommer logo, you probably can't see it, says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer 3024-6-600, double-acting clamp style spring hinge, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.